Hi everyone, my name is Phil and welcome to PhilDoes3D. I'm a multimedia and 3D artist and I stream on Twitch weekdays from 5 PM Pacific time in the US, 11 AM in Australia and 12 AM in the UK. Let's get started. We'll continue the work we were doing yesterday on the garden terrace. Let's boot up Max. Get some music happening. Hope everyone's well. Feel free to pop into chat if you want to ask me any questions or just say hi. Or if you just want to lurk, that's cool too. Okay. We spent yesterday texturing the staircase, the front staircase for the garden terrace in Mari and doing a bit more modelling in Max, just on some of the end pieces to give it a bit more detail. As you can see, we textured up the side railings. We added a little bit more detail on the end pieces here and at the top. So let's see, what will we work on today? We might texture up the front tiles here at the base of the steps. Let's see what textures might be good for that. We'll probably lay down a base texture like we have with the other models, and then we will take it into Mari and paint over it to give it a bit more interest. Alright, let's see now. Is there anything here I like the look of? It's an interesting texture. Maybe that one. Let's see what else we've got to play with here. I'm looking for something quite plain for the bottom of the stairs. I don't want it to be too busy. Maybe something like that. Anyway, let's get into Max and we'll see what we've got to work with. So let's open up the material editor. I might just do a little bit of housekeeping here so I can get myself organized. I'll move that one over here. We'll move these ones over here. The way I like to work in the material editor is I'm painting up textures. Anything I'm currently is just a base texture and will be painted over, I place over here. Anything that I've rendered out and I'm going to be is the final texture, I place to the side just here. It just makes life a bit easier. That way you're not hunting for textures constantly. So anyway, let's load up a new material. look at that one from Germany that we looked at first. One right there. Let's pipe that into the diffuse channel. Show shaded, show realistic. Select the base there and we'll apply the material. Alright, let's zoom in a little bit. Okay. Let's do a UV map. Planar. We'll fit it to the texture. Now what's it doing here? Let me see. Right, okay. I'm just going to increase the tiling on it a little bit. Well, it may work. Let's just have a look at, see if we can find anything a little better for a base texture. Select the texture. Let's see what this one looks like. As a base texture, it may be okay. Let's just see if we can find anything else that might be a bit better. Yeah, that's a little busy, I think, for what we want. Maybe, but we'll just keep going. It's quite easy to change text, swap textures in and out, so not a big deal. That's interesting. Yeah, that is interesting, actually. Let's go with this one for the moment. And let's just fix that texture up a little bit. We'll throw an unwrap UVW on. We'll open the material editor. I'm going to select that front edge just there. Don't worry about this for the moment. We're going to be placing another mesh over the top of this as we did with the top of the stairs just here. So how the texture looks there is not going to be an issue. It won't be seen. But this will be, so we'll look at that. We're going to break the texture. We'll do a flatten mapping. Let's scale it out a little bit, I think. Scale it up. Let me turn off map theme so we can get a better view of what we're working with. Open the UV editor again. We're going to move that in here. Scale it in a bit. Move it over a little bit and up. Scale it out. Move it. Over. Let me just show that texture. It might make it a bit easier. Okay. I think it might be a little bit too wide. It's a bit better. We'll move it over. If you want to constrain when you're doing a move in the UV editor, just hold down the Shift key, hold the Shift key before you click the mouse button, and then it will only move in the direction, the one direction that you choose it with the when you start to move the mouse, so in this case sideways. Or down. Make sure you have snapping turned off though. Right, let's work with that for now. And let's take that into Mari and put a bit of dirt on it. It looks a bit too clean for something that should be sitting outside in the garden. So, but before we do that, we have to bake the texture down into a new UV map channel 2, render that out to texture, so that's our base texture, and then we can take it into Mari and paint over the top of it. So let's do that now. I'm in UV mode, so get out of that. Select the mesh, throw an unwrap UVW. We want to change the map channel here into channel 2. We can move the UVs across. Now we want to go render to texture. We're going to use an existing channel, map channel 2. Just before we do that though, let's open the UV editor for map channel 2. Select everything. Go mapping, flatten mapping. The defaults are fine. That just maps everything within the 0 to 1 UV space. Okay. Now render to texture. Again, if Max plays up and doesn't show you the entire panel like that, just move the panel a bit like that and it'll show back up. So using existing channel 2, we're going to add a diffuse map. This is quite a large piece, so I'm going to make it 4K or 4096. That way, if we go larger than we need, we can always reduce it in Photoshop, but if it's too small for what we need and we try and enlarge it in Photoshop, it's not going to look good. So always better to render out at this stage larger than you may need and then reduce it down in Photoshop later on. Okay, so we've got map channel 2, diffuse map at 4096 by 4096. We'll just set the path to our stairs folder we were working with yesterday. We're going to call this one Lower Terrace Tiles. I'll just copy that name. 24-bit TGA is fine. And we're going to render that out. Okay. I'm just going to rename that to our texture. So Lower Terrace Tiles. Now we're going to export that. Export selected. Again, we're going to put it in our stairs folder. We're going to save it as an OBJ file. And we're going to call it Lower Terrace Tiles. Leave it as the default, should be fine. Close render to texture. We're done with that for the moment. Let's just minimize Max. And we'll load up Mari. I'll just reopen Max so we've got something to look at while Mari loads up in the background. Yeah, again, don't worry about the texture just here. We'll place another mesh over the top of that will texture up. And so that serves two purposes. It hides, well, we don't have to worry about doing that part of the texture, you being that part of the texture. And it'll give a bit more detail and interest to the model itself. Still not sure what I'm going to do with the top part here, whether I'm going to put like a rotunda part, columns with a top on it, just there. How's Mari going? All right, we want to go File, New. We're going to call it Lower Terrace Tiles. We're going to load the OBJ file we just exported from Max, which is here. Lower Terrace Tiles OBJ. We're going to create a 4096 by 4096 texture. I'm just going to change my path here to a temp directory. So we have the name of the project, the OBJ we just exported. The root path is just a temporary path that Mari uses while it does its caching work. We're creating a color map at 4096 by 4096. Just click OK. Now, this message saying UVs are out of range, UDIM 1186, that's because we didn't copy a channel info across. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to let Mari finish its work just here. And we're going to close this project for a sec. Just the project, not Mari. It's going to minimize Mari, open up Max again. We've got our lower terrace tile selected, so then we go to the modify panel, channel info, open channel info. This is the second texture map we just rendered out to texture. This is the original texture map. Mari got confused because we have both of these on the model at the same time. So what we want to do is copy map 2, paste it into map 1. Don't worry about our textures going all funky, we'll fix that in a minute. And then we can clear map 2. Okay. Let's fix that texture problem before we start painting on it in Mari. So open up the material editor. We're going to create a standard material, load in a bitmap. We're going to go to our stairs folder. We're going to look for our lower terrace tiles, TGA, and open that up. We'll pipe that into the diffuse channel. Show shaded, show realistic. I just like to do that because if I change anything up here, I don't have to worry about coming back into the material editor and turning those two flags on. And then we assign that to material. And you see our texture is back the way it was, the way we rendered it out to texture. So we'll just re-export that selected object again. There's lower terrace tiles.obj. Yes, we want to overwrite. Export. Okay. Now we will create a new project in Mari again. We're calling it lower terrace tiles. We're going to load up the object, lower terrace tiles.obj. Select it, the temporary directory. Create 4K 4096 by 4096 color texture. I don't like calling it 4K because of everyone talking about 4K televisions now. That's not what true 4K resolution is. True resolution 4K is 4096 by 4096, regardless of what TV manufacturers want to say. Click OK. 4096 by 4096 color texture. I don't like calling it 4K because of everyone talking about 4K televisions now. That's not what true 4K resolution is. True resolution 4K is 4096 by 4096, regardless of what TV manufacturers want to say. Click OK. 4096 by 4096 color texture. I don't like calling it 4K because of everyone talking about 4K televisions now. That's not what true 4K resolution is. True resolution 4K is 4096 by 4096, regardless of what TV manufacturers want to say. Click OK. You see Murray didn't complain about the UV spaces again because we corrected that in Max. I'm just going to quickly load up our texture. F drive, stairs folder, asterisk that so we can see everything that's in there. Lower terrace tiles.tga is the folder we want, and import all patches. Okay, I'm going to turn flat shading on so we can see what we're doing a little bit more easily. And that's the way we're looking at it. Just there. So again, I've got masking on. That's what that red shading is. That means that if I paint here, it won't affect the top texture, and if I paint there, it won't affect the bottom. And just it's a little bit of a safeguard for you while you're working. Let's bring in some texture maps to work with. Age and stressed. Hold the shift key and select all. And open that up. I think what we want to do is these tiles look incredibly clean, like they've been scrubbed within an inch of their life, which just won't look natural. It may be natural if you're doing an interior, like an inside render of a room, but anything that's outside in the weather is going to be muddied up, faded, dirty. So you never want to leave a texture for something that's sitting in the outdoors and going to be weathered that clean. It just won't look right. So anyway, let's create a new layer here so that we've got a clean layer to work with. And let's see what we can do here. Let's have a look at this one. Okay, let's scale it down a bit, quite a bit. Move it over here. Maybe a little bit more. Paint that on. Move the texture. Paint that on. Again, I don't have to worry about the overlapping, the texture painting on that front edge because it's masked out as shown by that red shading. Let's just paint that out a bit. Paint that out. Paint that out there like that. You probably notice as I'm painting this piece of dark texture just here is a very noticeable, very unique part of the texture, so I don't really want to repeat that very much. I can repeat it a little bit, not a lot, because it'll be noticeable once we place the texture down. Paint that out like that. Again, I'm covering up this bit here like that and painting over the top of it to get rid of it, so you don't notice that repeating pattern. I also want to fix that line that's showing up just in there, just by placing the texture over it like that and painting over like that. I may do this entire row and then I'll come back and fix this line that's appearing just in here. Okay, and a bit there, just like that, and we'll come back and cover up this line that we made, just with a very plain part of the texture, like that. Let's start in the middle, I think, for this one. Paint that out to make it a little larger. A lot of this part of the model is actually hidden underneath of the main part of the terrace, but we'll paint it out anyway, considering it's here and it's not that difficult to do anyway. Might as well. But if we wanted to save time, we were pushed for a deadline or something, really only this part of the texture is going to be seen. So, but we may want to pull the bottom part of the terrace out, make it a little larger. So we will texture it up just so that we have it there, and in case we do want to have that option to make it a bit bigger in the Max when we go back into 3D Studio Max. Saves us having to come back and paint over it again. But it is something just to keep in mind. If you're only seeing a part of the model, you really only need to paint the part that you're seeing, if you're sure you're not going to be moving it or changing anything. But it's probably good habit to get into to paint it all anyway. Just there like that. Press the Alt key to bake that down, because it's not actually physically attached to the model until you hit the Alt key in Mari. We'll move to the front here, and we'll do a bit along the front, maybe a bit like that there. And a bit there like that. Maybe a bit there like that. Just through there like that. And bake that down. Okay, let's pull in a little bit. Let's see now. Nope. No. 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 Definitely not. Maybe we bring it back a little. No. 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 Let's go back to hard light, I think. We just want to pull it in a little bit. That's just creating a bit of color variation now across the tiles. But we're not done yet, so let's add another layer. And let's see now. These alpha maps are really good for adding dirt and grime. Let's have a look at this one. Let me just pull that up so I can see what it is. Maybe. Let's have a look at this one. No, not really. The lines in it will look a bit odd if it's being used as a dirt map. What about this one? This one might be good. We'll scale it up a little bit. This one's called map high 174. Now, let me just move the model up and we can move the texture down to have a look at it. This texture isn't bad. Let's just have a look at this one quickly. This one's interesting as well. We'll work with it. We'll try this one. If it doesn't work, we can because it's on its own layer, we can always delete it. So might be a bit big though, so I might just pull it down a little. Working on the new layer. Paint over. The top part. Blend that in a little bit more. And blend that in just through there like that. And this last edge. Okay, I'm just going to move that out of the way. Press the Alt key to bake everything down. And just pull down the opacity here to dial it back. A bit like that. Let me just save that for the moment. Okay, let's load up a few more textures. All right. Now, let's pull this one in on another layer. We'll just move it into view and rotate it around, I think, like that. Now I just want to paint in a bit of detail in here. Just before I do that though, I'm going to look at my brush settings here. I want the outer radius to be a little larger. I want to pull down the opacity a bit so that I can work more layering instead of laying a thick layer of texture at once. I can paint it in more gradually. Let's do the same on the other side here. I'll rotate that around a bit. Move it up a bit. Okay. Now let's grab another texture. Scale it down a little. Rotate it around a little. Just paint a bit through here. Alright, let's just move that texture out of the way. Go back to our layers. Pull that up a bit like that. bit like that. Now if this was outside, the front of this tiled area would have had water running off of it, so it would have left residue behind. So let's do something about that now. Let's work on another layer. Let's see now. Maybe this one. Where's it put it? Okay, it's down there. That's why we can't find it. Let's rotate that around. Scale it down. Zoom in a bit on our model. Zoom in a bit more. Scale the texture up a bit. And start painting that in. Take that down. Back that down. Back that down. Let's pull that back a little bit. And let's go with this one. I'll scale it down a bit on a new layer. Let's paint that in there like that. And maybe this one. Scale it up a little bit and move it over here. We'll paint that in. And maybe this one. Maybe scale it down a little. Paint a few in here. And maybe a couple just there. We'll bake that down. I'll just move that out of the way for a minute. Might just pull it back a bit, I think. Okay, save that. I'm going to see what this looks like so far in Max. So we go to export flattened, export all layers flattened. We're in our stairs folder. We're going to call this lower terrace painted.tga and export all patches. Okay, now I'm going to go back into 3D Studio Max, into our material editor, and we're going to swap that original texture out for the one we've just been working on, which is this one, lower terrace painted.tga. Okay. Let's full screen Max here so we get a better view. Well, it's just helped to give it a bit more interest, make it look a bit dirty, a bit more weathered. Let's see. I know I want to have like a mosaic tile through this section here, this round section. So we want to tile this top section. So what I'm going to do, select that object, go into edit poly, now what I could do with this is I could create another mesh that's the same shape as that, but it's probably going to be easier for me to do it this way. So where are we? If I can I detach that top piece as its own object. We'll call it A, just for simplicity. Okay, select this, go to face, select that object, we'll detach this as B, go to the opposite side, select by face, we'll attach that as C, face, so let me go back a bit. We'll make that one D.